Alright, now what I'm going to be doing is taking a zigzag section for the disconnect. Again, you know, when I do a haircut, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the crown area, which we explained fully in the first series of our haircutting system. And you know, when you do a disconnect, okay, the thicker the hair is, the wider the disconnect can be. The thinner the hair is, then obviously the less wide, okay, because you're going to have less hair. So I'm going to take my disconnect into a zigzag parting. Like this, okay, to the top. We have taken our fringe section into a triangular section. Our zigzag partings come around to just above the occipital bone. And I do it above the occipital bone because when I'm cutting, because I want that shape to curve into the neck here, okay, I want to allow this area at the occipital bone to bounce out naturally. Okay, now my fingers are going to be pointing upwards, just as they were with the vertical layering in our first videotape, okay? I'm going to look for where the hair bends into the neck, pick this hair straight out from the head, make sure that my fingers are parallel with the shape of the head, okay? And then come around so that this just sits into the neck. Okay, take my next section, pull it straight out from the head. And work around. Alright, now again, on the right hand side, once I get to the occipital bone, what I'm going to be doing now is turning my fingers around so that I'm now cutting on the top of my fingers. This enables me to follow the shape of the head at this point, and it becomes easier for me to cut the hair on the top of my fingers at this point than on the underside, than on the underneath of my fingers. So it has a dual purpose. It can follow the shape of the head, and it makes it easier to cut. So I'm going to cut on the top of my fingers now, traveling around the head until I get to the beginning of my disconnect. Okay, and the back section ends right behind the ear. Then we're going to go into the side section. So when I finish the back, what I like to do is like take a brush and just comb the hair so that we can begin to see what the texture of the hair looks like. And for me, you know, the hair has to move. I have to be able to comb it over to the side. It stays there. Have it comb it straight down. Have it comb into the middle. And my texture is retained. Alright, now we're coming into the side section. What I'm going to do with the side section is I'm going to cut, or excuse me, I'm going to part this section in half. And the reason why is because the root system underneath here is growing straight down, the root system here is growing a little bit forward. So, you know, with my system I have to follow the root system when I'm cutting the hair. Now, when I cut the sides, my fingers are going to be in exactly the same position as they were when I did the back section. So here, okay, I can either, depending on how close I want to get to the hairline, and with this particular look we want to cut it fairly close. So I'm going to be holding the hair between my fingers and cutting underneath my fingers, which will allow me to get really close to the hairline. And then when I get above the top part, when I get to the top part of the side section, I will be cutting on the top of my fingers because I want to be just a little bit further away from the scalp. Okay, so bring that down. Okay, and then when I cut around the ear, I'm going to cut from the back to the front. Alright, and then with the top part of the section, I am now going to cut on the top of my fingers, making sure I follow the way that the hair is growing when I subdivide. That is so incredibly important. Because again, what I don't want is I don't want to get any overdirection. So I come all the way through. And the side section goes from behind the ear to where the hairline changes direction in the front. Alright, so what we have again, okay, is when I take my brush, I'm able to brush the hair and have the same texture running from the back into the sides. Now when I come around to the left-hand side, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. The only difference is that this time my fingers are going to be pointing upwards, okay, and I'm going to be cutting down. Now again, once again, I have separated the side section into two different sections, okay, so that here I'm following the root system is straight up and down, and here where it comes forward I'm going to be combing and cutting it slightly forward. But here you can see my guideline, fingers parallel with the shape of the head, okay, coming through so that I can get, cutting on the underside of my finger so that I can get really nice and close to the hairline. Okay, all the way through to where the side section ends at the receding part of the hairline. And now when I come around to cut around the ear, okay, still going from the back to the front. Okay, and then once again combing it so that I have the same texture running from the back all the way through into the sides. Now with the fringe, okay, we've got it in our triangular section, which we talked about in the first DVD, and I'm going to follow the disconnect all the way through. I'm going to use my side section as my guideline, pick the fringe up and cut it straight out from the head. Okay, again following the root system when I pick this up. Just so that we get a nice wispy fringe. And we have the same texture running all the way from the sides into the fringe, connecting with the other side. Okay, so that will be the end of my disconnect. Alright, now we're going to come into the top, and this is what I meant about starting the haircut at the top of the head. Because now I'm going to have this hair overlap the cut that we have just done. Now, the important thing that we have to remember here, okay, is to take a section from the top of the head just through to the middle of the ear. Okay, like so. So we're going from the top of the head coming down so that it ends up with the middle of the ear, all right? Then I'm going to look for my crown. Now, the thing with starting at the top of the head is that I cannot just pick this section up and arbitrarily decide that, well, maybe we'll go here, or maybe we'll go here, or maybe we'll go here, okay? Because then we're using guesswork. I'm sort of guessing to see if the hair is going to do what I want it to do. I have to work within the balance points of the head, and my balance points are the crown and the occipital bone. So when I do this kind of technique where I'm going to be starting at the top of the head, how I find the length is to measure either to the crown or anywhere between the crown and the occipital bone. Because anywhere between the crown and the occipital bone, my layering is going to work depending on the texture of the hair. So what I mean by that is, like, the finer the hair, then the shorter this is going to have to be to make it do what I want it to do. The thicker the hair, okay, the longer this could be. Because if I have fine hair and I put too much length on it, then the hair is just going to go flat. So what I'm going to be doing here with Jenny is I'm going to measure her hair from the top of the head to the occipital bone. That is where I want my length to be. Because I want, when I blow dry, I want this hair to flow over the occipital bone. I just don't want it to stick up. And that could happen if I just take an arbitrary length, because I'm not going to measure it to any of the balance points of the head. Straight across. So when you see me cut the hair, when you're looking at it from the front, I'm going to be lifting this hair up, and it's going to be cut straight across like this, so that the hair here is going to be longer than the hair here. So I take my parting, lift the hair up, measure it to the crown, really important. Pull it straight up from the head, and then I'm going to cut straight across. Okay, not following the shape of the head, so that this hair overlaps the hair that I've just cut. Then when I do the other side, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Pull it straight up from the head, cut straight across so that I am not following the shape of the head. So that the ends are longer than the middle. Now, when I come through and I cut from the top of the head to the crown, this I think is very, very important, because what I must not do is I must not pick this hair up and follow the shape of the head like that. I have to bring this hair up, okay, with my fingers at this angle so that this hair is longer than this hair here. Because what that does is it allows this hair to bounce over the crown, all right? And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this whole first section that I cut here as my guideline, okay? And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to over-direct this hair into the center. This hair is all going to be pulled straight out from the head in that position. Okay, so I take my next section, pull it straight out and cut. So what you see me do is you actually see me coming around the head. So actually my layering is getting longer and longer, and I'm taking less and less hair off. There. And then the same thing here. Okay, my hair's at an angle, my fingers are at this angle, and I'm traveling down the side of the head, excuse me. Okay, so I'm actually taking less and less hair off, so that overlaps my disconnect. When I get to the back, okay, I'm going to cut this hair straight up and down. So I pull this hair straight out from the head and then cut this straight up and down. Okay, but once again, I am not over directing this hair into the center. I'm coming around. Okay, and then the same on the other side. Straight up and down. That's my guideline. Now we can see how this top layer really blends in nicely with the disconnect underneath, and it gives us that really nice shape that we were looking for. So now when I come into the top, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to come to my shortest point, and my fingers are going to be at this angle, and I'm going to come out. And once again, I'm going to be traveling down the side of the head. So I am not over directing this. Excuse me. I'm not over directing this into the top. Because if I do that, then what's going to happen is I'm going to get earmuffs. I'm going to get these big wads of hair. That look just like earmuffs. Alright, now when I come through onto the other side, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Lift this hair straight out from the head, but again I'm going to be coming down, following the shape of the head. So pulling the hair straight out from the head. And my partings are straight across. Straight out from the head. And straight out from the head. Right the way through to my disconnect. Bit of weight. Okay, right the way through to my disconnect. Okay, so now that we've completed our top section, I'm going to come through here and then just clean up these sides, because I'd like to take this so that this is basically straight across here. Make this quite clean. Two different textures there, and then we'll do exactly the same on this side. Just lift that. Straight across. And then once I have got my length in, which is what I have done, okay, then we can go through and we can texturize. Now of course there's many forms of texturizing. One can use texturizing scissors. I prefer to just use straight scissors all the way through. And the reason why I do is because I feel like I have a lot more control over what I'm doing. I can see exactly where I want to texturize. Now the thing about when I do a haircut is what I like to do is I like to blow the hair dry without putting any product in it whatsoever, so that I can see exactly how my shape is performing without the product, okay? So that if the client doesn't do anything to it at all, okay, it's still going to look reasonably good. So this is how the layering looks, okay, when I disconnect without any product in it whatsoever, okay? So now what we're going to do is to accent the haircut, we will use product. And with this particular haircut, I'm going to use a product called Thick, because I really want this hair to stand up. I really want to see a lot of definition, okay, between the long hair on the top and the disconnect underneath. Okay, so we're going to use a fair amount of the product. And when I blow dry, I'm going to use a vent brush, okay? Because with this particular product, with the Thick, if I use a Denman brush, then the brush is going to literally get stuck in the hair. So with the blow dry, I'm going to start at the crown and work around the crown, because the crown is the balance point of my haircut. Okay, now when I finish with the blow dry, now what I'm going to go through and I'm just going to check off for any length that I see, you know, just to clean the haircut up. And when I clean up the disconnect part of the haircut, I'm going to slide cut. So I'm going to take the scissors and I'm just going to slide cut out like this, so that that top layer blends really nicely in with the disconnect on the side. And as you can see, you know, there really is very, very, very little cleanup work to do. And that's because of the fact that when we initially cut the hair, we cut the hair to exactly the right length with the very first cut. All right, so I'm going to get some makeup put on Jenny, and then I'm going to finish off with some pomade so that we can see how the finished result look. Now what I'd like to do is just recap exactly what we did with the system. We took a zigzag parting coming to the crown, and then another zigzag parting so that the middle comes just above the occipital bone. All of the hair, that we pinned all of the hair up, all of the hair underneath the zigzag parting, we cut with vertical layering so that all of the layering was even, traveling from the center of the back all the way through to the sides. When we came round to do the top, we started at the top of the head. We measured our length from the top of the head to the crown, and then when we cut straight across so that the two ends of the sections are longer than the center. When we came through to cut over the crown, we've come through, we lift the hair up, we lift the hair at an angle so that our guideline is shorter, and we come out. And the thing to remember is that we travel down and around the head for the layering. Once we have done the crown area, we come into where the occipital bone area is, and then we take our partings straight up and down, and we cut straight up and down following the shape of the head. There is no over direction into the center. When we come through and we do the top, starting from the center, using the center as the shortest point, we come out again so that the fringe area is the longest area, and again we are going to travel following the shape of the head, so that again we do not over direct this hair into the center. The fringe area was taken in a triangular section, and the fringe was cut so that it blended in with the side sections, and this hair here overlaps the fringe area. We shampooed with the Nicolas shampoo for color treated hair, which has a violet base to it. This allows the color to be locked in. We also use the all-in-one conditioner afterwards, which is also a fantastic detangler. The styling products that I used was the thick, to give the hair the bounce that we need, and I finished off with the Tough Stuff molding mud. So once again, short disconnect.